Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
So I'm watching CNN here, and they've got a banner at the bottom of the screen. They're covering Trump over at the Department of Transportation. He's giving he was rocking it over there with a speech on infrastructure and modernizing things. At the bottom, there's a banner. And it's just, you have to, the person sitting there creating that has to just be a little troll filled with hate. Trump addresses Transportation Department after calling Comey a liar. That was the banner.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
After calling Comey a liar, that happened yesterday. They're still seething about it. These people, I try to get a mental image of them sitting there. If they're watching Comey and they're watching the testimony and they're waiting and they don't get what they want, but they get close enough to it and the hatred is just multiplying. Their skin is almost incapable of containing their hatred. Their skulls expanding, geometric proportions. Trump is still president, damn it, after everything they've done. He's still there, and he's over to Transportation Department, and he's rocking it. Doesn't Trump know he's supposed to be sulking in the White House and thinking about quitting? Doesn't Trump know that it's over? Doesn't Trump realize we are destroying him? When is he going to start acting like we are succeeding? They're going nuts. And that doesn't even get halfway there. This is clinical insanity. Maybe I need... Today, at the Huffing and Puffington Post, there is what is this babe a professor of? Yeah, she's a law professor. Her name is Marjorie or Marietta or something Cohen, C-O-H-N. Donald Trump pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord is an impeachable offense. It is a high crime and misdemeanor because he is mass murdering humanity. They even created a new word, terracide, for destroying and killing the dirt, killing the planet. Terra as in terrain, terracide. I was talking to Mr. Snerdley. You realize we cannot even connect with these people to then have a conversation. These people have escaped all rationality and reason. And they are being governed, and I'm talking about the vast majority of people on the left, they are now being defined and governed by a raw, sheer hatred. And this next is important. That hatred is combined with daily affirmation that the best they've got to get rid of Donald Trump is not working. And that just infuriates them even more. Trump was over there at the Department of Transportation, and he did a Reagan trick. One year during the State of the Union show, Renaldus Magnus wanted to illustrate the folly and the ridiculousness of the federal budget. So he had a stack of paper like 20 feet tall, illustrating, might not have been 20 feet, but it took a couple people to get it up there. Trump did the same thing. There was a guy in the audience that he met, and he wanted to build like a 10-foot road, 10-mile road. And he had 3 gigantic binders filled with paper, all of the regulations and restrictions and commandments that he had to go through, and he's been trying to do it for 10 years. So Trump asked, can I bring this up on stage and show it? And the guy said, sure. So Trump did, and gave a dynamite visual aid display of the folly of trying to build anything. And he reminded, we built the Golden Gate Bridge. This is going to shock you. I mentioned this to you before. The Golden Gate Bridge, how many years do you think it took us to build it? It was 4. The Hoover Dam, 4 years. The Bay Bridge in 4 years. We built all 3 of those things during the Great Depression. How long do you think it took to build the Empire State Building? 1 year. Trump made the point that it would take 10 years today if you got all the approvals. Then the environmental impact nutcases got involved in it, and every union got involved in it. Every minority got their little piece of the pie. You might not even be able to build it at all. But I didn't want to bring that up, but since you did ground zero, I mean, that took 10 years. And look at the hassle. Look at all the concessions. We even had to have there was a country, we had to build a mosque nearby. Remember that? To show unity and so forth. Anyway, Trump is rocking at the speech, and I just know that these little sniveling brats all throughout the media and throughout the American left are watching this, and it just infuriates them. How else do you write a graphic at the bottom of the screen? Trump addresses Transportation Department after calling Comey a liar. I know what they're going through. They think, I can tell you exactly what's in these people's minds. Pick your name. Pick a drive-by journalist. Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, doesn't matter. Pick any of them. Just visualize one person. They think every day they've destroyed Trump. They think the job's done every day, and they expect to see results. They expect to see a Trump quivering in fear. They expect to see Trump withdrawing from public appearances. They expect to get reports of Trump cowering in the corner. They expect to hear reports of Trump losing his mind and drooling and unable to eat or drink or sleep in the White House. This is what they hope to be causing. They're hoping to drive Trump mad. What they want to do is have this pressure, this unrelenting pressure, affect Trump and his sanity. And every day Trump shows up and he tweets. And he jams it right back down the throat. And he goes into the Labor Department, at the Transportation Department, delivers a kick-butt speech, and they sit there and they seethe and they fume because anybody else was supposed to have been destroyed by now. Anybody else would have said, no mas, I quit, please stop. They would have gotten themselves and their family out of town, hoping to salvage what would be left of the rest of their horribly destroyed lives. But Donald Trump is hanging in there and making it look like none of this affects him. And in fact, he's taunting them right back by calling Comey the leaker, by calling Comey the liar. This is not how it's supposed to happen. When the girly boys of Washington come after you, you are supposed to cower in corner and have a spine made of linguine like they do. You're not supposed to act like King Kong. I saw somewhere, ladies and gentlemen, don't remember where, doesn't matter who it was, inspired thought. Somebody was trying to wax eloquent by saying the grand experiment that the American people voted on last November, the grand experiment, the long-awaited test to see if a successful American businessman with no political experience whatsoever could actually win the presidency and then go to Washington and make a positive difference. And the person writing this has concluded that the experiment has failed, that we have proven and demonstrated that a non-politician cannot hope to succeed in Washington, that a non-politician cannot possibly navigate the waters. It simply is a demonstrable failure. And I would submit to you that not only is that wishful thinking, but the experiment hasn't even seriously begun. The experiment of an outsider, of an American businessman, highly successful, getting fed up with the inefficiency and the waste and the hubris and the arrogance of Washington establishment types, decides to run for office and gets elected and goes to Washington, turns the place upside down. That experiment has not yet begun because the Washington establishment is thwarting it. The Washington establishment is not playing. They're not participating in the experiment. The Washington establishment has been singularly focused on trying to destroy this experiment since the election. They don't dare take the chance and roll the dice. They don't dare give this outsider successful American businessman anywhere near a fair shot at fixing what's wrong. As I have mentioned countless times, they can't afford to. They have the system monopolized. They have it totally controlled until this last election. Washington and things happened there on their time frame, in their agenda. They happen based on whether they in Washington want things to happen or not. The will of the American people is of little importance except at election time. And they will be damned if they're going to stand aside while some outsider, know-nothing, pig of a businessman comes in and illustrates what folly they are. They're just not going to take the risk. So they are never going to join the experiment. They are never going to participate in this. And I'm not even sure I like the description of all this as an experiment, but that's what the writer used. The point is, they're never going to relax and let Trump have a go at it. It's going to be a battle like this for as long as Trump is there. Now, I do think there are ways Trump could overcome them. I think Trump could turn the tables and wear them out. I think Trump could cause many of them to need padded cells. I think Trump, if he persists and if he remains filled with the Trump charm and the humor, if he continues with this and appears unfazed, he can wear him down, because I'm telling you, do not doubt me. Whoever wrote that graphic at CNN, whoever is writing scripts for people on TV to say, the assignment editors, the production agents, the talent, whoever they are, by now, they expected Trump to be either gone or rendered incompetent or impotent or destroyed or ineffective. They by now expected to have succeeded in destroying Trump, and they haven't, and it's driving them crazy. They have given it everything they've got. Not saying Trump isn't damaged. Don't misunderstand. I'm talking about them. I'm talking about their psychology. They are the combined powers of the Washington establishment and the Washington media and the Democrat Party. And they have been totally unified in their singular effort to destroy one man. And they have not done it. And it is driving them crazy. And it has now become the daily competition to see who can finally do it. Who can drive Trump over the edge? Who can force Trump to have the breakdown that everybody knows is coming? Who will get the medal? Who will get the gold star for getting the credit for finally driving Donald Trump out of Washington, D.C.? This is the competition now. It's a unified competition, a unified effort. It has been in full swing since election night, and it actually got started much before that, but its intensity began on election night and has continued unabated. I am coming around to believe that James Comey has been part of an ongoing effort to entrap President Trump for the express purposes of having him legally charged with whatever offenses they can drum up. I believe that Comey is just one of the many agents in the Washington establishment who have devoted themselves to trichonology, deceit, and all-out warfare in an effort to entrap or ensnare Trump, or in other ways to just flat out destroy Trump. And the fact that it isn't working, because one thing is for sure, after yesterday, nothing changes. The people that hate Trump are still there, and the people that love Trump are still there. And the people that love Trump are becoming more and more hated. I have an audio soundbite here. Somebody, forget the network. Gary Tuchman. No, it's not Tuchman. Yes, it was. Gary Tuchman of CNN. He decided to risk his life. You know what he did? Gary Tuchman decided to leave the confines of the New York-Washington axis. And he ventured out to states where people who voted for Donald Trump live. Admittedly a great risk. People may not come back alive from such a trip. But Gary Tuchman, courageous and brave girly man from CNN, went out there and immersed himself in Trump culture and came back. He lived to tell about it. And he was destroyed, and he was despondent, and he was beside himself because you know what he found? The people who voted for Donald Trump think James Comey's the liar. And the people that voted for Donald Trump love Trump more than ever. The people that supported Donald Trump still support Donald Trump, and they're more glued to him than ever. And this is driving them crazier. They're muttering late at night in the dark to themselves, gosh, it was easier to take out Nixon than this guy, and Nixon knew what he was doing. They're going nuts. We will continue here. It's Open Line Friday, by the way, so have at it, folks. I'll be right back. Yeah, I've noticed that. I've been asked this. Have you noticed all the attention the media is playing to the British election? Yeah, I have noticed that. You know why? They're looking anywhere they can for wins, and they look at the British election, and they see that Theresa May lost her majority in Parliament, and that the Tories, the left-wing radicals, by the way, the guy that runs the Labour Party in the UK, this Jeremy Corbyn guy, you know, I've had two different things set aside to describe this guy, to discuss that election, and I just had to broom it in favor of other more pressing matters here. He's a nut. He is a literal, genuine nut. He's one of these hate-filled, irrational trolls that it's scary. Anyway, the media is treating this as though the Democrats have won a special election. That's why they're spending so much time on it. They think it's an election that Labor won. It's an election that the so-called conservatives lost. And so they can look at this, look at this, and they can try to make the case that this is a forerunner. This is the sign that we've succeeded in destroying Trump. Yes, that's right, an election in the UK. Now we got Georgia 6 coming up on January 20th. The polling is very close there, if you believe it. The pajama boy, Ossoff, is up 49-47, maybe 49-47 and a half over the Republican candidate. And it's getting close. I got people that live there who are sending me notes that are in panic. They've never seen an election in their district this intense, with this many spots on TV, and with this much hatred being bandied about. And it's you can see in the emails, you can read it. They're scared to death that this pajama boy guy, who doesn't even live in the district, is going to win it. I don't think so. Keep your powder dry. The drive-bys want you panicking just like any other election. They want you thinking all is lost. They want you thinking that Trump and you and everybody else going down, 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 and that they're on this great resurgent path, and they ain't. They're not. We'll be back. Sit tight. Open Line Friday. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh, having more fun than a human being, should be allowed to have the telephone number if you want to join us. 800-282-2882. If you want to send an email, ilrushbo@eibnet.us. Now, I mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, that nothing really changed after yesterday in terms of the ongoing daily soap opera presentation in the drive-by media. But I think something did change. Comey was to take Trump out yesterday. Trump was not taken out. I think if you put it on a scale, it's still pretty equally balanced, but my opinion is the anti-Trump people are angrier than the pro-Trump people are. Now, we're plenty angry over the injustice of all this. We understand what's going on. They thought they had the kill shot yesterday. They thought they had the kill shot when, what's-her-face, Sally Yates showed up. They thought Comey had the kill shot previous times he's come up to testify. They have talked themselves into believing that they have effectively gotten rid of Trump. It's just a matter of time and execution. And they have to live with the idea daily that they have failed. Now, you might disagree with me. You might think they're succeeding. I'm telling you they haven't, not according to their expectations. Trump is supposed to by now be ineffective. He's supposed to be not even there, essentially. He's supposed to have been so mentally destroyed that his desire to do this is supposed to have been withered away. It's absent. And that's not the case. They're the ones that are still in the throes of disbelief and anger and lunacy and intense insanity. And you can see it if you just take the time to listen and watch. Things are not going their way, starting with the election. And they have not been able to turn things around to where they are confident everyday things are. Well, it's a fine line. Every day, I think they get all excited and they get all hipped up and they think this is it. And with every new leak and with every new story, with every new panel discussion on cable TV, I think they tell themselves, this is it, this is it, this is it. And every day they fail. Trump is still there the next day. He's still there that night. And they have to know. Here's another thing, folks. They have to know they are lying. They know they're running fake news. They know they are running stuff from sources that are making it up. They know, in essence, that none of what they have is legitimate. They don't care, but I'm telling you it has an effect because it's daily recognition of failure. Now, at this point, they're still inspired to ratchet it up and keep trying. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying anything has been won here. What I'm saying is they haven't. And they have expected to long before today. And they really thought that Comey yesterday was going to put an official end to this. If not an actual end yesterday, that what Comey was going to do yesterday would effectively mean the end of the Trump presidency. And we are so far from that. You know, I mentioned that the Washington Post is running a story about how bars in the Washington area were going to open at 9 a.m. on Thursday so that people could treat it like the Super Bowl. And I ran into a story here that has pictures of millennial types in a bar in Brooklyn watching the Comey testimony, and you can't find a happy face among them. They are dejected. They are long-faced. They are slouching. They're watching this, and it's not what they were led to believe. They were not what they were led to expect. I mean, and in the first 10 minutes, Comey came out and said, no, Trump was right. He was never under investigation. The wind came out of their sails. Do you realize how many people on the left, I mean, they believe their media. They believe their polling data. They believe their Nate Silvers. They believe Trump was colluding with Putin. Putin was being interviewed by Megyn Kelly, and he finally got exasperated. Because Megyn says, well, what did you and Trump talk about? How have you and Trump... And Putin finally got exasperated. I've never met the guy. I don't know who he is. I don't know what you're talking about. There hasn't been anything of the sort you say. He literally got a little flabbergasted. They believe it. And so when the guy who is supposed to deliver the final nail in the coffin opens up by saying that Trump was never under investigation and that Trump was telling the truth when he said Comey told him that 3 times. You can see in the pictures here at the Brooklyn bar, you can see the total dejection on their faces. As I say, they believe their media. Now, there was something gnawing at me yesterday while watching all of this that has to do with the fact that Trump was not under investigation, that Comey had told him 3 times, starting way back in January, and that the first meeting between Comey and Trump was requested by Comey. Did you know that? Comey tried to make everybody believe yesterday that Trump wanted to speak with him alone, and I don't know, don't leave me alone in the room with him, he told us. This is just not normal. It was Comey who asked for the room to be cleared at Trump Tower on January 6th. It was Comey who requested a solitary meeting with Trump. Now, Trump had invited him up there. Comey was with a bunch of other people in the intel community. It was when that endless parade of people was going in and out of Trump Tower. But it was Comey who requested a lone meeting, a private meeting, and ushered everybody out of the room. Now, the point of that is, imagine you're Trump. And here comes the FBI director, and you know what he's doing, and he's investigating this, investigating that, and he requests the room. He asks everybody to be cleared out of the room so he can have a one-on-one with you. If you're Trump, could you be blamed for thinking that's how the FBI director wants to meet with you? So when you ask on February 14th for another meeting with the FBI director, you ask him to come up to the White House for dinner, because this is how it happened last time. It's all there in the testimony yesterday. And the first time, I think it was January 6th, where Trump was told he was not under investigation. And that gnawed at me all day yesterday. That's a long time. And but this goes beyond just the fact that of all the things leaked, that wasn't. The great point made by Marco Rubio, that everything in the kitchen sink has been leaking except that. That didn't leak. And that's the only thing that's really mattered in all of this. The only factual true thing about all these leaks is the one that didn't leak. That Comey told Trump he was not under investigation. As I say, it was gnawing at me all day yesterday. So I got back home yesterday. I took my chill period and then delved back into show prep, and I ran across a literally great piece by Dan McLaughlin at National Review. And it perfectly explains why I was unsettled, why something was bothering me about all this yesterday. Take a brief time out, and I'll tell you why when we get back. Don't go away. Greetings and welcome back. We're going to be getting to your phone calls here in a minute. We got a great couple of montages of Comey that I cannot wait to share with you. We just got a lot here today, but these things here at the top I wanted to make sure that I mentioned. What bothered me yesterday that Dan McLaughlin at National Review brought into focus is that all of these people, Comey had told everybody in closed session up on Capitol Hill, he had told them that Trump was not under investigation. Do you realize the entire Senate and House intelligence communities have known since January, since Comey's first appearance up there, whenever it was, that Trump was not under investigation? Every damn Democrat for the last 4 months has known this. So have a lot of Republicans. But it didn't stop Chuck Schumer from saying we need to stop the hearings on Neil Gorsuch until the Trump investigation is over. Schumer said that despite knowing Trump was not under investigation because James Comey had told people. He just had not leaked it. Many Democrat members of the Senate knew that Donald Trump was not being investigated, and yet they continued to make those charges in the media. And it was most visible with Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren using it as a card to try to get Trump's nomination of Gorsuch killed. Dan McLaughlin, National Review. Just think how many times Schumer made the charge while knowing all along it wasn't true. All these Democrats charging Trump, alluding true, alleging. Some of them were saying they haven't seen any evidence of collusion. They were honest about that, but they did not divulge that they knew Trump was not under investigation. This is one of the biggest scams. Call it hoaxes, whatever you want to call it. It is outrageous. Trump did not know until Comey told him. And I think Trump probably fired Comey because Comey would not announce this. Contrast this with Hillary. He couldn't wait to exonerate Hillary Clinton. And he couldn't wait to read Hillary Clinton's mind when he said, I can't find any intent on her part to share classified data, and therefore no prosecutor would do this. And everybody was shouting, Petraeus, Petraeus. It's the same thing. Petraeus was trafficking classified data, and you sure as hell prosecuted the hell out of him. More on that in a minute, too, because that is a great contrast, what happened to Petraeus and what could happen to Comey. Comey and Petraeus, you are not allowed to traffic in conversations about national security you've had with the president. Petraeus was prosecuted for writing his own memos, recounting conversations with people higher up the food chain. They were called his black books. There were 8 of them. And his biographer, who he ended up having an affair with, he shared them with her. And he kept them in her house, which was not a secured location. Comey has gotten close to doing the exact same thing, memorializing conversations with the president. They're not going to charge Comey, don't misunderstand. But when you are reminded of the Petraeus story, your blood will boil. So you have all these Democrats out there continuing to obstruct and oppose Trump on the basis of this investigation, all the while they knew Trump was not being investigated. All the while they knew it was Comey who made the original request for a private meeting with Trump, and he did so at the suggestion of that hack from the Obama administration, James Clapper. And he based that first conversation with Trump on that silly, totally fake dossier featuring the golden shower story. You understand Trump's frustration? He's in the White House every day. He's been told 3 different times, the FBI director, he's not a target. He watches a lot of news, which I think he should stop doing. He watches a lot of news, and he sees Schumer and all these other guys running around talking about how we need to suspend the Gorsuch nomination for a while. We need to stop. We can't move forward on the Trump agenda until it is cleared in the investigation. And they knew he wasn't even being targeted. And I'm going to tell you this. If Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren and Dianne Feinstein and all these others, so did the media. So did the media. I don't believe for a moment that that wasn't leaked. I think that was leaked and it wasn't published by the drive-by. That didn't serve anybody's purpose. Trump's not a target? That blows the whole story up. That blows every contingency to shreds that Trump is not being investigated. So that's why they've dropped the collusion aspect and now they're on to obstruction. Newt Gingrich has tweeted that the Republicans better get their act in gear and get rid of this independent counsel as quickly as they can because he thinks this is a total screw job. Comey and Mueller being best buds, Mueller being a classic Washington, D.C. insider. All those times that Schumer and Elizabeth Warren are running around savaging and attacking Trump and advocating delay, the media was used to push the lie that Trump was under investigation. And they had to be totally willing in this. They knew it. I don't believe for a moment people in the media did not know Trump had been cleared. And all of that falls apart yesterday. And not one place in the drive-by media are you hearing this interpretation of events. Not a single place. This illustrates to a degree that I don't think a lot of people even quite believe possible just what a bunch of reprobates, real, genuine reprobates, the Democrat Party has become, as well as the drive-by media. James Comey refused to end all of this. He could have stopped this madness. He says he cares about America. He wants us to all come together. He thinks we need to work together to stop the Russians from trying to tamper with our precious system, for crying out loud. It was Comey and the Democrats and the media that were trying to tamper with our precious system and blow it to smithereens. And Comey allowed it to continue by refusing to end it by announcing that Trump wasn't even being investigated. How does that square with everything you've thought you've known since last November? Trump was never... The next question to ask, then why the hell is this investigation still going on, seemingly interminably? Be right back. Don't go anywhere. I make this promise to you. We're going to get into the phones in the next hour. I've got to get started on the audio soundbites that illustrate and back up many of these salient points that I have made verbally in this hour. So you hang in there, be tough. Our local affiliate tell you what's going on where you live, and we'll tell you to hang on and don't go anywhere, so you'll be there when we get back in a very, very short period of time. Hi, folks. Welcome back. Great to have you. It's Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIB microphone here at the distinguished and prestigious Limbaugh Institute for Truth, which also means anti-leftist studies on Friday.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
That means that when we go to the phones, and we're going to go to the phones, do not doubt me. 800-282-2882, email address lrushbo@eibnet.com. Okay, I want to go back and revisit the David Petraeus case, because I got a tweet last night. Well, I didn't get it. Nobody tweets me, and I saw a tweet. Somebody forwarded a tweet to me. Some tweeter out there was claiming that Comey was in violation of the Espionage Act by releasing memos that he had written after conversations with the president, which you cannot do if they involve national security. So you know me and Twitter, and I think you should join me in this. Believe none of what you see and half of what you hear there, and check everything. That is what I do when it comes. I did that with practically anything now, but particularly with Twitter and Facebook. So, as a powerful, influential member of the media, I have people in the know in practically every important area of life that I can call. So I did that, except I don't call them. I email them or iMessage or whatever. Remember David Petraeus? Great guy. The guy that came up with the surge in Iraq. Obama loved him so much, or considered him to be such a threat, that he made him director of the CIA. And Petraeus ended up a monumental ego. David Petraeus literally thought that there was nobody in his league. And this attitude gave him self-conceived powers of almost invincibility. He also had a groupie biographer, the now famous Paula Broadwell, married mother of 3, was his biographer. They ended up having an affair. I make no judgment on that. I'm not here to be the epitome of morality and virtue in this regard. But she also thought that the bathroom didn't smell when Petraeus used it. I mean, it was just sheer idolatry. They came up with a very clever way of communicating so that there would not be an email trail. They used Gmail. And on Gmail, you could try this yourself if you're having an affair with somebody and don't want anybody to know it. The person with whom you're having an affair or any other secret relationship, use the drafts folder. You both sign into the identical same Gmail account. You write your emails to each other, and you leave them in the draft folder. They are never transmitted over the Internet. And each of you log into Gmail and consult the drafts folder to find out what the other has written. And that's what they were doing. She was such a devoted, loyal, shall we say, follower of Petraeus, that he began to trust her, and he had been writing memos of his meetings with Obama and Bush in order to memorialize his own greatness and his own importance and his own relevance. And by the time he had finished with this, there were 8 of them, and they were known as Petraeus's Black Books, a play off on black boxes. And he let the biographer have access to them, number one. And number two, he allowed her to keep them in a dwelling she occupied for safety and security. And, of course, her place had not been officially sanctioned as a safe house by the military or the government. So that was another violation. Letting her have access to them was a violation. Him even writing the memos, since it obviously involved national security, was a problem. And that's what he was prosecuted for. And there was he could have gone serious jail time for this. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I got this tweet saying that Comey violated the Espionage Act by memorializing these memos. And since he was talking with Trump about Russia and the investigation, you could say that it was discussions about national security. So I thought, looking back on the Petraeus case, if nothing else, would be interesting. Now, the nuts and bolts of this are that with the disposition of the criminal case against Petraeus happened in the Western District of North Carolina in Charlotte. The U.S. attorney there had filed a document outlining the factual basis for the plea because Petraeus pled out here rather than go to trial and risk jail time. And in outlining the basis for the guilty plea, prosecutors would be in a position to prove therefore, Petraeus exercised his right to trial and make a decision whether to or not. And this document explains that in his tenure as commander of the U.S. and coalition forces in Afghanistan, Petraeus maintained journals, 5 by 8-inch notebooks that contained his daily schedule and notes that he took regarding matters discussed in meetings and briefings. Eventually, there were 8 of them, and as I said, they were known as Petraeus's Black Books. Now, he knew that the books contained extremely sensitive classified information, including, according to the prosecutor, the identities of covert officers, war strategy, intelligence capabilities and mechanisms, diplomatic discussions, quotes, and deliberative discussions from high-level National Security Council meetings, and defendant David Howell Petraeus' discussions with the President of the United States. That's a key. The prosecutors had all of that were in these memos, plus Petraeus' memorializing discussions he'd had with the president. As is widely known, Petraeus had the extramarital affair with the biographer Paula Broadwell, former Army Reserve officer. She interviewed him during the 2011 period for her fawning book, All In, The Education of General David Petraeus. It was August 4th of 2011 that Petraeus returned to America from Afghanistan, but a few weeks before that, he took over as CIA director. Before he took over, he submitted to a tape-recorded interview in which Broadwell asked him about these books, noting that she and Petraeus had never gone through them together. Petraeus said, well, they're really highly classified. Some of them, there's code word stuff in there. So he's detailing from the biographer the degree to which these things are top secret. Code word's a designation for extremely high-level classified info. And even officials with top secret clearance are generally not eligibly read in on national defense secrets categorized as code word. Well, but 3 weeks later, on August 27th, Petraeus agreed in an email to provide the Black Books to Paula Broadwell. So he transferred them out of his possession to her. He delivered them to her the next day at a private residence where she was staying during a 1-week trip to Washington. That's the residence that was not approved as a safe house by national security agencies. Such safe houses or storage areas are equipped with a lot of protections, and access to them is tightly controlled. But it was just her temporary residence. There were no security controls at all, and yet Petraeus let him have these 8, or her have these 8 Black Books. The provision of such classified information to a person not entitled to receive it is a felony violation of the Espionage Act, punished by up to 10 years imprisonment. Moreover, specifically with respect to revelations about covert agents, because it contained the identities of spies, it is a felony violation of the Intelligence Identities Protection Act for a government official intentionally and without authorization to disclose information that identifies a covert agent. Anyway, You compare what they did to him to what they didn't do to Hillary after Comey's reading her mind, claiming she had no intent of doing it. They went after Petraeus like you can't believe. They forced him into a plea deal Not suggesting they shouldn't have, but Hillary got a pass strictly on Comey's mind-reading abilities. I didn't detect that she had any intent whatsoever of doing what she did. Translation, she's just a dumb idiot, didn't even know what she was doing. She was trying to keep people from finding out about her daughter's yoga lessons or whatever. And now you have the specter of Comey memorializing conversations with the president and leaking them. CNN's running a banner. Trump calls Comey a leaker. Last hour, Trump addresses Transportation Department after calling Comey a liar. Comey is a leaker. This is how the drive-bys do it. Trump claims Comey leaker. He didn't claim anything. He is. Make it look like it's a baseless charge. Now to Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz has written a piece at Fox News confirming, here's the headline, confirms that I'm right and all the Democrat commentators are wrong. Now, and if we've played sound bites of Dershowitz, he has just made mincemeat of these left-wing commentators who don't even understand the Constitution. Such as Jeffrey Toobin, who wants to try to criminalize the fact that the president would talk to the FBI director. They seem to believe the FBI director has powers independent of the president and that the president has to be subordinate to the FBI director. You actually have learned lawyers on CNN and through other drive-by media who believe this in order to be able to categorize Trump as violating the law. And Dershowitz, every chance he's gotten, has pointed out that these nimrods don't know the Constitution. It's the president that runs the executive branch. And if anybody answers to anybody, it's the FBI director answers to the president. The president cannot obstruct. By definition of the Constitution, the president cannot obstruct the FBI director. He can order him around. He can tell him to do this, not do that. Obama, has anybody forgotten? Obama ordered the Justice Department not to prosecute Dreamers, not to prosecute the DOMA Act, just willy-nilly. Remember when you first heard of this? Obama orders the Justice Department to stop prosecuting. He can do it. He runs the executive branch. By the same token, Trump can do it. So Dershowitz is along now. It's really strange, too, to have Dershowitz essentially focusing his fire on like-minded leftists. But I think he's such a strict interpreter of the law and the Constitution that I think he's greatly offended by people in positions of power on major media networks and newspapers who are ignorant of it. They ought not have the job if they don't know what they're talking about. If they don't understand the nature of executive power, the separation of powers, and if they're going to use their ignorance to try to indict Donald Trump as somehow being subordinate to James Comey or what, they don't deserve to be on TV. I think it bothers Dershowitz greatly, and he's made no bones about taking them on, and now he's writing a piece that Comey's testimony proves I'm right. Tony's testimony confirms that all the Democrat commentators are wrong. And wait till Dershowitz learns that all of these people have known all along that Trump was never a target of the investigation. To the audio sound bites. We have a couple montages of Comey we put together after the testimony yesterday. We have one that's very short, just 10 seconds. It was a rush job, no pun intended. And then one that's a little bit longer. Here's the first one.
That was a slightly cowardly way. I was also confused. I was honestly concerned. It was a surprise. It gave me a queasy feeling. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
He said that 9 times yesterday, by the way. Although I could be wrong. I might be wrong. I could very well be wrong. 9 times. You know what that is? CYA, baby. CYA. I could be wrong. But what I think happened here, Senator, is that Trump's a pig. I could be wrong, but I think the president's a liar. I could be wrong, but I just feared I wouldn't get the truth out of him. I had to write these memos because I know the president's a liar. I could be wrong. We had a caller yesterday who said Comey sounded like a millennial whining girl. Remember that caller? And I remembered it. Got a Story here in the stack, and it's actually CNN. Mark Bauerlein, professor of English at Emory University, senior editor of the journal First Things, and author of The Dumbest Generation, How the Digital Age Stupefies Young Americans and Jeopardizes Our Future. And he believes that Comey is too sensitive for his own good. You know, I made the point. I call him the boys' nation. What the hell is this? We didn't have an FBI director that sounded like he ran the nation's most powerful law enforcement agency. We didn't have a guy that sounded like that at all. And this guy, Mark Bauerlein, writes, during his testimony, Comey didn't sound like the head of a fearsome investigative agency. He sounded like a middle manager in business who's just attended a human resources seminar on inappropriate behavior in the workplace. We had a caller that basically said the same thing. So we thought we'd put together a montage about it.
The shifting explanations confused me and increasingly concerned me. They confused me. That didn't make sense to me. A very disturbing thing, very concerning. It caused a whole lot of personal pain for me, confused me and concerned me. I was honestly concerned. Made me uneasy. I was so uneasy. This is a very disturbing development. Lordy, I was kind of a slightly cowardly way. Shocked and troubled. Never experienced such a thing. Very concerned. I was a bit stunned. You know, I don't want to make you sound like I'm Captain Courageous. What came to my mind is be careful. I was very much my serious concern. I woke up in the middle of the night. He couldn't possibly be having dinner with me alone. Why did he kick everybody out of the Oval Office? I was worried the media was camping at the end of my driveway. I worried it would be like feeding seagulls. It rings in my ear as kind of, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest? Concerned me. You look back in hindsight, you think, should I have resisted harder? That gave me a queasy feeling. Extraordinarily difficult and painful. Got very awkward. I could always be wrong. Again, I could be wrong. Now look, I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Is this not amazing? Now, I got to take a break, but the part where he says, I feel very awoke in the middle of the night, he can possibly be having dinner with me alone, he's the one that first suggested it. Okay, we start on the phones in Sonora, California. Irene, I'm glad you waited. I appreciate that. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I love your Rush. Anyway, my point is this. In the beginning with Comey, everybody was saying what a principled man he was.
Right.
Well, not.
Right.
Yesterday was a fiasco. This investigation should stop. Trump has no connection with Russia. This is my point. Why in the world did they select Mueller as this counsel, this investigation, when they knew he's a friend of Comey? Is this man out to make a name for himself? And
who, Mueller?
Yeah.
Well,
could you imagine? He would be the man who brought Trump down. Well, and my question to you, Rush, is this.
Yes.
Is there a possibility there is a collusion going on between Comey, Mueller, and the establishment? They hate Trump so bad, they're going to go to any length to destroy this man who is trying to make this country prosperous and to bring America to where it should be. Prosperity and no poverty, as much as we can have no poverty. My thought is, why Mueller? Can he be unbiased, especially when his friend is concerned? Can he use his judgment and not be clouded by this friendship? Something stinks.
Yeah, I understand why you have the suspicions that you do. I mean, all you have to do, the fact, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. What the heck is going on? Why is there because they've moved the special prosecutor now. They're hoping to move it to investigation of obstruction, since there isn't any collusion. Look, with Comey not leaking, the only thing that matters, I can understand why you think there might be some grand alignment here. I can't blame you for thinking. I got to take a brief time out. Sit tight, my friends. We'll be back much more straight ahead. And I want you to put yourself in their shoes again. Schumer, Dianne Feinstein, pencil neck Schiff, drive-by media, they have known. Folks, this is crucially important. These people in the real world owe Donald Trump such an apology. You can't believe how big they owe him an apology. The Democrat Party, the American media, have known since probably January that Donald Trump has never been under investigation in whatever investigation is actually happening. And you know what? If we learn somewhere down the road that there isn't even an investigation ongoing, I won't be surprised. I haven't seen one shred, one shred of evidence. We don't have any crimes. We haven't been told what crimes are being pursued. All we have been is lied to. We have been led to believe that the investigation involves Trump or his people colluding with the Russians to affect the outcome of the election. Don't forget, Comey yesterday admitted for about the umpteenth time that there is no evidence that votes were tampered with. So where is the there here? If Trump has never been part of this investigation, then what is? All we have is this nebulous, the Russians tried to hack. The Russians did this. The Russians did this. When everybody under the sun, oh, yes, it's very bad what the Russians tried. What did they try to do? What did they succeed at doing? What do we need to invest? The only thing that's happened here is the Democrat Party lost an election. They rigged their primary election. The Russians or somebody got into their computers and sent the news up to WikiLeaks. That's what's happened here. And all of that's been turned into Donald Trump colluded with the Russians, and there's never been any evidence, and now we know he's never even been targeted as the investigation's primary actor. The only thing that's happened here is that the Democrats lost an election that they and everybody in the world thought they were going to win big. They have been humiliated. They had a rotten candidate who still can't get over it, who's going insane before everybody's eyes every time she shows up anywhere. So is every other Democrat slowly but surely losing his or her mind. And over here, we've got this nebulous investigation that the FBI and the courageous and patriotic James Comey are conducting. What investigation? Of who? Of what? I could make the case that there is a never-ending investigation of Russian hackery, and it's probably taking place at the CIA and the NSA, and it's not really an investigation. What it is ongoing efforts to make sure they can't penetrate networks. I'm sure there's a never-ending effort to secure our data and networks from Russia and the Chicoms and the Norks. What investigation? You realize what a Hoover term that is? Vacuum clear. There's an investigation going on. Well, investigation in the House? What? Investigation in the Senate? Investigation at the FBI? Investigation at the CIA? Of what now? But remember this. Since January, every one of these people, every important Democrat, that means in the leadership, and undoubtedly, in my mind, many central figures of the drive-by media have known this is June. We're in month 6 of this calendar year. I submit to you that the last 4 or 5 months, central figures in the Democrat Party and the media have known that Trump is not a target. And yet, they have continued to obstruct the Trump agenda, to destroy Trump, carry out their agenda, in full knowledge that he was not a target, and yet basing their obstruction on the very fact that he was. They owe him an apology like nobody has been owed an apology. But beyond that, I want you to put yourself in their shoes. Only then can you understand the sheer insanity that they are experiencing. They cover up the fact that Trump is not a target, and they get away with 5 months of making it look like he is. He's a bad actor. He doesn't deserve the presidency. He's an illegitimate, immoral pig. They've had a clear field. They've had collusion. They've had conspiratorial help with the media and any other agents they wanted to bring into this, the CIA, the embeds in the deep state. They've had an army. And they've had hearing after hearing where bombshells were supposed to drop that would destroy Trump. Sally Yates, Comey a couple times, and Trump's still standing. They've given it the best they've got. They have lied. They have knowingly woven an intricate web of deceit that has now fallen totally apart on them. The best and the brightest in the media have done their level best to destroy Trump and everybody who works with him. And it's utter failure from that standpoint. I know you think that they're winning because they continue to create the daily narrative that Trump's in trouble, but the bottom line is, folks, there's no there. Everything they're doing is a lie, and it's rooted and based in sheer, raw hatred. And they're losing their minds. Put yourself in their shoes. They think they had a lock. They think that they were going to get rid of Trump maybe in February. They thought they were getting rid of Trump. They were going to cause the American people to rise up in righteous anger and demand that Trump quit. And they venture out into Trumpville and Trump land, and they find that Trump supporters are more supportive than ever. They're glued tighter to him than ever, and they're insane. And here is evidence. Kristen Gillibrand, senatorette from New York, today at the Personal Democracy Forum, just listen.
Has he kept any of these promises? No. No. Instead...
Stop it. She dropped the F-bomb. We bleeped it out. Has he kept any of these promises? No. And then she drops the F-bomb. No. Hear it again.
Has he kept any of these promises? No. No. Instead... Sorry. I understand this is a younger audience. It's okay. And even though we as Democrats are on the right side of almost all issues, many hardworking families just haven't felt that we've been fighting for them. Fundamentally, if we are not helping people, we should go the home.
She did it again. She dropped the F-bomb again. The Democrats are dropping the F-bomb at practically every appearance now because they think that's how they connect to the millennials. They're losing their minds. And now, if we're not helping people, we should go I endorse that. Get the hell out of Dodge. You people are causing more trouble. You know what? It's the Democrat Party that is destroying the integrity of the American electoral system. It's not Putin. It's not Dmitry Medvedev. It's not the Chi-Coms. It's not the Norks. It's the Democrat Party, which has sought to destroy the integrity of the American electoral system. All because they're a bunch of spoil sports who lost the election. Pat, somewhere out on Long Island, great to have you on the Open Line Friday edition of the program. How are you?
I'm so good, and I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say that if the media is wondering why we're still behind Trump, we see him as the Paul Revere of this century. If for nothing else, he has exposed this country and what's going on in this country for what it is. The media, the Democrats, and even some of the Republicans. And it's now starting to look to everybody like it's us against them. And he's brought that forward.
Let me ask you this. You've been a Trumpist from the get-go?
Absolutely.
How much... So I don't want to ask you a leading question, but there may be no other way to do this. Are you proud? Are you happy? Are you amazed? Are you appreciative of how Trump has hung in despite what are political nuclear bombs detonated around him multiple times a day? The guy has hung in, and he is, he may not have the humor quotient that he had during the campaign, and he may not be exhibiting all the charm, but he's still in there. He's not giving up. He's not toning down. He's not trying to curry favor with these people. He's still tweeting against. Do you have an appreciation for that?
An appreciation? I see him as a superhero. He has more courage than anyone else I know. And I give him and his family all our support, because for what he's endured in the last couple of months, or since he's even gotten into the campaign, is astonishing. And like I said, he's brought a light on what's actually been going on for the last couple of years, and people were asleep, and I don't think they're asleep anymore.
Well, I appreciate that. I wanted to get that answer, but I didn't want to have to lead you into it, but there was no other way to ask you the question. But I think it's phenomenal. I don't think, people who have not been in the public eye and have not been in the swirl of political controversy, you watch it from afar, and you see people attacked. You see them lied about. You see their family going after. You see all this. And you might think it's reprehensible and horrible, but, man, it pales compared to having it happen to you. And I'm here to tell you that most people, and you couldn't blame them, nobody's raised for this, and nobody trains for it. When this kind of stuff, when entire national apparatus is mobilized against it, there are very few people that understand what this is like. The closest thing that I can approximate it to is, let's say you're running a special interest organization and you're trying to get some legislation. Let's say you're running a anti-abortion operation, and you're trying to get legislation passed to further your cause. And there are some average, ordinary Americans with incredible stories that would be really valuable if you could get them involved. And you find a way to get a couple involved. And once they get it, the media descends on them, and here are people from small-townville America, and all of a sudden they are cast as the most evil citizens in this world. They're dumb, they're stupid, they're bought and paid for. The media is doing anal exams of their lives and their families. And most of them put their hand, I didn't ask for this. You didn't tell me this is going to happen. And they want out of it. And you can't blame them. This is one reason why so few really unique, different people run for office, because the media anal exam like this for Republicans is now unprecedented. But the fact, and it's happening to Trump, and it's happening to his family, it's happening to his daughters, his sons, his daughters and sons-in-law, his children, his 11-year-old, his wife. I mean, any number of these people could go to him and say, Dad, it's not worth this. The wife could say, Donald, but it's not happening. They're all hanging in there. No, it's a big deal. Because there's nobody, if Trump ever decided to pack it in, there's nobody yet that's going to pick up his mantle. And that's what they're all angling for. So I think this all-out attempt to destroy not just the career, not just the agenda, not just the presidency, but the life of Donald Trump and his businesses and his family. And the fact that he's hanging in there is something that not very many people could do, and even fewer would put up with. Open Line Friday, America's real anchorman now more than ever, Rush Limbaugh, here at the EIB Network. Grab audio soundbites 23, 24, 25. I mentioned earlier that the Trumpster went over to the Department of Transportation today in a regularly scheduled event over there. CNN, again, their banner at the bottom of the page while Trump is speaking. Trump addresses National Transportation Department after calling Comey liar. After calling Comey liar. See, it's impossible that James Comey could lie. Comey's one of us. How dare Trump? I think Trump called him a leaker. Anyway, here's Trump, and he's telling the people at the NTSB how he's going to clean it up. There's way too much bureaucracy, way too many regulations. There's way too many obstacles to making America great. And he has illustrations and all kinds of things. And he's on a roll here. He was literally kicking it. Here's some sound bites from
it. It took only 4 years to build the Golden Gate Bridge and 5 years to build the Hoover Dam and less than 1 year to build the Empire State Building. People don't believe that. It took less than 1 year. But today it can take 10 years and far more than that just to get the approvals and permits.
Now, the point is, while all of this Comey-itis is swirling on Capitol Hill. And while the drive-bys and the Democrats are focused only on this, Trump's out doing his job. He's continuing to do what he can to move the agenda forward. Here is the next sound.
One gentleman from Maryland was talking about a 18-mile road, and he brought with him some of the approvals that they've gotten and paid for. They spent $29 million for an environmental report weighing 70 pounds and costing $24,000 per page. And I said, do me a favor, I'm going to make a speech in a little while. Do you mind if I take that and show it? So I'm going to show it. These binders on the stage could be replaced by just a few simple pages. How can a country prosper under this kind of nonsense?
You believe this $29 million for an environmental impact report that weighed 70 pounds and cost $24,000 a page? What do you think's really going on there? Do you think anybody's really worried about the environment? That's just a bunch of garbage, folks. This is just people dipping their hands, the public trough, and getting their little share of the project under the guise of protecting the planet, protecting the environment. It's a bunch of thieves disguised as regulators. Here's the last bite.
I was elected to change it. All of us in government service were elected to solve the problems that have plagued our nation. We are here to think big, to act boldly, and to rise above the petty partisan squabbling of Washington, D.C. We are here to take action. It's time to start building our country with American workers and with American iron and aluminum and steel. It's time to put up soaring new infrastructure that inspires pride in our people and our towns. It is time at last to put America first.
You are tuned to the fastest 3 hours in media. The evidence is we're already finished with 2 of them. We only have 1 more to go, and I'm going to try and get a few more phone calls in. We've just taken 3 so far. That's not good. Open line Friday. But they've all been great, and that's the point. So hang on. Still got lots of other stuff to address. And that infrastructure stuff from yesterday, too. That's coming up. Don't go away. Views expressed by the host of this program documented to be almost always right. 99.8% of the time. It's the latest opinion audit from the Sullivan Group in Rockland Farms, California.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
Here we go. Final big broadcast hour of the week. Happy to have you with us. El Rushbo serving humanity simply by showing up. Telephone number, Open Line Friday, 800-282-2882. The email address, elrushbo@eibnet.us. So it was a couple of days ago that I mentioned I've been holding on to a story here about the efforts on behalf of Trump to get into some serious infrastructure repair. Now, to set the stage for this, I want to remind you that in February of 2009, Barack Hussein requested a porculus package. It was called a stimulus package of about $800 billion that eventually found its way to $1 trillion. And do you remember the avowed purpose? Infrastructure repair. We were going to rebuild roads. We were going to rebuild bridges. We never were told which ones. And we were going to rebuild schools. And we were going to do all of this to modernize America. And barely 1% of this money went to that. Most of that money, as I have detailed, went to unions. We were in recession following the 2008 so-called financial crisis. And the Democrat Party did not want to lose any union dues contributions. So while people were losing their jobs, most of that stimulus money was sent to the states to keep union employees, teachers and the like, employed so that they continued to pay union dues. And a sizable portion of that $800 billion ended up back in the Democrat Party coffers in the laundered form of campaign donations. It was never about infrastructure. And then Obama asked for another one to rebuild roads and bridges in his second term. None of it has been done. So Trump comes along and says, we need to do it. And he gets detailed. He says, our airports are third world and deteriorating. We got bridges that you don't want to drive across. They look like rusted out armpits. And he's serious about it. And he's mentioned $1 trillion figure. And, of course, the reaction from the conservative right, $1 trillion? Where the hell are you going to get $1 trillion? We're running a $20 trillion. Where are you going to get the money? And Trump said private-public partnerships. And people like Snerdley said, that's not possible. You can't do that. You can't rebuild national bridges and airports and schools and so forth with private money. And we do it all the time. Have you ever seen, you go to the hospital, and you see the Ebenezer C. Scrooge Cancer Wing. How do you think it got built? Ebenezer Scrooge donated the money with the promise that his name would go on the damn thing. All right? Well, that's private sector. I mean, it's okay, private hospitals, but it's still private sector money, even though it's charitable money. And all over New York, I mean, you can see it. All of these billionaires that want their names to live on and ever, the Ronald J. Perlman Lipstick Foundation Cancer Wing at the northeast wing of the North Fork Hospital, whatever it is. Well, I have instinctively always understood the concept of public-private partnerships in order to rebuild roads, bridges, and so forth and so on. But that's because I understand instinctively and appreciate capitalism. So I came across this. It's actually an opinion piece. It was in the Washington Times on June 7th. So that means it was on Wednesday. And it's by Alexander Markovsky and Herbert London. Now, you know who Herb London is, right? You have he's a professor. He's a candidate. He's been a political analyst. He was on firing line type shows now and then. He's a New Yorker. You should love him, right? Capitalism can evolve if allowed to. Alexander Markovsky and Herbert London. I'll just read to you the opening graph here. After proposing $1 trillion investment into infrastructure, the Trump administration's harnessing the brainpower of renowned experts to unlock the insoluble problem of how many jobs will be created for each $1 billion of spending. While stressing the obvious, the administration's missing the important point. The purpose of capitalism is not job creation. Amen to that. The purpose of capitalism is not to create health care plans. The purpose of capitalism is not to forge livable communities with little gardens outside your standard government-provided apartment. The purpose of the capitalist economy is to create wealth, and that's why leftists oppose it. They want to be in charge of the wealth, primarily in how it is distributed and how the earning of it is limited. The left hates capitalism, not because of freedom and liberty, although they do, but the primary reason they hate capitalism is that it is the most efficient engine to create wealth for the greatest number of people in a society that has ever been devised. Nobody's ever claimed it's perfect. Nobody's ever said it's flawless, but it's better than anything else out there, particularly anything the left has to offer. The purpose of a capitalist economy is to create wealth. Employment and the subsequent distribution of the spoils of an economy are byproducts of capitalism. Since its inception, capitalism has been in a perpetual state of evolution. It is not a static set of principles or rules or of predictable behavior patterns. This has been true from the Industrial Revolution that ignited an economy of mass production to the economy of mass productivity to most recently the economy of mass consumption. Each subsequent phase of capitalism has been associated with innovation, the rise of productivity, and the immense creation of wealth. Now, it is inarguable that the United States of America is the wealthiest nation that there has ever been. It is also inarguable that this is because the United States is and has been capitalist. It is inarguable that the United States in its heyday created the highest standard of living for the most people in the history of humanity. It is inarguable. This is why the left so opposes it, because it is a system. It doesn't have a leader or an ideology attached to it, and therefore the left cannot control it. The left does not like self-reliance and individuality and the disparities in wealth and income that result. So the left has targeted capitalism forever on the pretext that it's unfair, that it's unequal, that it is mean-spirited, that it is white patriarchal Christianity. It's all of these horrible, rotten things. But the thing about capitalism is that nobody allows themselves to think and to understand is that it's always evolving. And that, or this, is how it evolves as related to infrastructure. Since its inception, capitalism has been in a perpetual state of evolution, from the Industrial Revolution to mass production, to mass productivity, to mass consumption. Until recently, only the government could handle projects on the scale of the Hoover Dam or the interstate highway system. But now, large corporations and investment funds have sufficient resources to build projects on any scale. So there is no imperative for the government, federal, state, or local, to be the only financier. There's no imperative for the government to maintain modern infrastructure when private capital is available to do the job. When we say that we should privatize this or privatize that, why do we say this? It's always better, isn't it? When the profit motive is there, it's always better. It's more efficient. It works better. Trump's talking about privatizing the air traffic control. But there's been any number of instances where we've tried to privatize this or that under the theory that it would be done better. Well, why not infrastructure? Why is infrastructure supposedly out of bounds? Why, when it comes to bridges and roads and screws, why is it that only the government can do that? Why can't the filthy rich and you're not hedge fund help to renovate some schools if that's where they want to invest their money? Why can't the investment firm of I've got more than you'll ever have and I'm laughing at you about it, not build a highway or two if they think it might be a valuable investment? Well, because then they own it and they can restrict who uses it. And you think the government doesn't. You talk about government owning and restricting people on things. The government restricts what you can say. They restrict what you can watch. They restrict now what you can eat. They restrict what your health care is going to be. And you're worried about them restricting roads. You see how this works? We've so fallen for the premise that only government can do certain things. But then when we get around to privatizing, so people always applaud it. Well, I mean, the left never does, but privatize this, privatize that, prisons, you name it. When you are endeavoring to create wealth by virtue create profit, you're going to have a much more efficient operation, a bunch of bureaucrats who have no idea what they're doing, by the way. Only the government should run health care, right? Why? Barack Obama doesn't know the first thing about it except maybe how to use a Band-Aid. His wife doesn't know the first thing about nutrition or what everybody else should eat, but she's the expert, right? Because the Oprah says so. Do you know what? Speaking of the Oprah, I saw something the other day that, this is profound. The Oprah says she would not want to interview Trump. The Oprah will interview anybody. Well, not me either, but she specifically didn't want to interview Trump. Why? What are they afraid of? I don't want to give that pig any kind of notoriety whatsoever. Privatization of the infrastructure will open a new multi-million-dollar frontier for capitalism, and its effect could be massive. It has the potential to create a long-term economic expansion that would dwarf the scale of the Pacific Rail. By the way, who built the railroads, Mr. Snerdley? That's right. Practically, well, who made all the money from? Not all the money, but does the name Vanderbilt ring a bell? All right. Well, I forget who they exploited. I mean, Mel Brooks got even with them. But there are still, to this day, heirs of the Vanderbilt money that still don't have to work. Well, Anderson Cooper but he works. But he's a descendant of the Vanderbilt's mother, obviously. But the railroads are built by private. And then there was also W. Averill Harriman. Does that name ring a bell? LBJ loved W. Averill Harriman because he was married to Pamela Harriman, who was Pamela What's-Her-Face, that Churchill, I mean, everybody dated her. Ambassador to France, ambassador to Europe, ambassador to Vaginaville, she was ambassador to everywhere. W. Averill Harriman actually founded and discovered what is it? The place out in Idaho, Sun Valley. You can still see, you go to Sun Valley, you can still see the original ski lift that W. Averill Harriman built. You wouldn't get on it today, but it's there. It's sort of like a statue. Point is that private sector infrastructure used to be the name of the game. And there's no reason it couldn't work again. And it's certainly not inconceivable that you could have a government partnership with this, with certain private sector individuals. But you have to be comfortable with capitalism, because if you're not, you're going to oppose this till the end of days. Back after this, folks. It's Open Line Friday. Back to the phones we go. This is Matt, Lincoln, Nebraska. Welcome, sir. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Rush. You know, I believe right now that the CNN, the fake media, that they are preparing all the fake news ready for 2020 to start bringing on the fake people to say that they were a Trump supporter, but now they can't support Trump anymore because of all the scandals. And they don't want 4 more years of scandals.
I wouldn't be surprised that they do that, both in print and in broadcast. Famous for finding even if they had to make up just 1 or 2, they would do it. I mean, if they'll monkey around with polling data, why not with testimonials? That reminds me, grab audio soundbite, see what it is here. This is, I think it's number 6 and number 7. Gary Tuchman, CNN, very brave and courageous. CNN intrepid reporter, decided to venture out into Trump country. He was on CNN's Anderson Cooper 2:30 last night. And Tuchman spoke with a focus group of Trump voters in Fairfield, Ohio, about Comey's testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee. And this is how Tuchman started the Q&A with the voters.
Raise your hand if you believe James Comey lied. 4 of you believe he lied. Raise your hand if you believe Donald Trump has lied at all about the situation. None of you believe that.
Gary Tuchman, you can't believe it. He's from the New York-Washington axis, New York-Washington corridors, works at CNN. The only liar here is Trump. Comey is the second coming right now. Comey is an angel. Comey is the savior. Comey is the individual of mass integrity. It's going to destroy this pig, Donald Trump. So Tuchman goes out there and says, how many of you believe James Comey lied? All 4 hands go up. How many of you believe Donald Trump has lied? No hands go up. So after that, Tuchman was astounded. He was shocked when he found out these people thought it was a good day for Trump.
Let me ask you this before we go. I think I may know the answer to this, but a show of hands. How many of you feel better about Donald Trump, your president, after this hearing? How many of you feel worse about Donald Trump? I guess you all raised your hands the first time. So you think that was a success for Donald Trump but not for Mr. Comey?
Yes, absolutely.
9 Ohio voters on a historical day here.
9 Ohio voters. Now, they could have easily gone out, and they could have found 9 people claiming they were Trump voters who thought it was embarrassing and bad, and they regret voting for Trump. But it's not what happened. They went out there and they found 9 people, and every one of them thought it was a great day for Trump, but not for Comey. 9 Ohio voters on an historic day. And I will guarantee you, CNN's probably not surprised. I mean, they've got to know that there's at least 9 people like Trump. And they're probably in the control room laughing at them and making fun of the way they look and making fun of the way they talk. And they're probably, the CNN people, patting themselves on the back for making Trump voters look like fools and turning it around into a positive for that's how they would look at it. Don't think that they have any real respect for you Trump voters. You're the biggest bunch of hayseed doofuses that ever come down the pike. And they're going to convince you, if it takes till 2020, they're going to embarrass you, make sure you realize you did wrong. Debbie, Nashville, great to have you with us on Open Line Friday. I appreciate your call.
Hi, Rush. Thanks for taking my call.
Anytime. You bet.
I was watching news feed on Washington Post and CNN, and they are gearing up their whistleblower lawyers, claiming that Comey is a whistleblower and therefore not a leaker. And I was just wondering to get your take on that and what you thought. What did he blow the whistle?
What did he blow the whistle on?
Well, supposedly, if the special counsel determines that a crime was committed, then Comey is a whistleblower, not a leaker.
Right, but again, what crime?
Well, they're saying they're imagining or supposing that the special counsel will find a crime.
What crime? Well,
I suppose they're saying the crime of obstruction.
Yeah, because there isn't a crime now. You know what they're going? Can I tell you? You know what they're going after? You know the name Michael Flynn, right?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think? There's no wrong answer here. I just want to pick your brain here. After everything you've heard, and you think you know about Michael Flynn, what is it that he's done that they're going to nab him for and punish him for?
I suppose possibly lying to the FBI, maybe. They think that he lied on one of his forms.
Okay. All right. No, well, hold on a minute now. But you're right. They're going after Flynn on lying to investigators. But that's not what they've said Flynn did. They've said Flynn colluded with the Russians. They said Flynn talked to the Russian ambassador about lifting sanctions. They say Flynn committed treason. They say Flynn did. They got nothing on Flynn. He didn't do anything. Now they're trying to zero in on a process crime.
Yeah, everything Flynn did was within his bounds on the transition team to talk with the Russian ambassador.
Right. The point is, everything that the American people have been told about what a reprobate this guy is, he hasn't done those things. He did lie. He may have lied. He lied to Vice President. I don't know what specific process crime, but I know they're going after him for lying. So now you bring up, they're trying to say that Comey was just a whistleblower. The special counsel is going to go after Trump for obstruction. What would be the obstruction? Trump was never targeted. Trump was never being investigated. So how the heck can Trump be trying to shut down the investigation? I think Trump's like anybody else. He wants to know what the hell is the investigation. We still don't know what the hell it is. CNN, they just had a graphic. You know, Trump's got a presser coming up with the Grand Poobah of Romania. And CNN had 5 questions they hope the media asks. And one of the questions is information on Russian interference. Here again, folks, we have something that is being portrayed to you as it's never happened before. It only happened because of Trump, and it happened in collusion with Trump, even though now everybody knows that Trump was not being investigated for that. And there's supposedly some ongoing investigation into the... But why do you think Loretta Lynch wanted Comey to call the Hillary investigation a matter? Because the word investigation is a loaded word. The word investigation implies detectives and crimes and gumshoes walking and running around town trying to find clues because it's obvious that a crime or two has been committed. And so the investigation is made up of sleuths and private eyes going out there and trying to find... Now, that's not what this is. You know, trying to counter Russian interference is a daily operation of the CIA. This boggles my mind that the Russians have this unique thing they do of trying to interfere with American elections. Folks, I have to tell you, I think career CIA people who may be nonpartisan, not attached, they have to be laughing themselves silly at the way all of this has been positioned. The objective of the CIA is to stop and expose Russian spies every day on any number of things. But the way this has been portrayed is that we are hopefully helplessly harmed. The Russians have invaded our elections. The Russians have an ongoing operation to tamper with our precious elections, and we are powerless to stop it, and we don't know how it happened, and Trump might have made it happen, and oh my God, it's horrible. As though the Russians every other day are minding their own business, not caring about their interfering in our elections. Meaning the idea that there's a special isolated investigation into Russian interference is a laughable concept. It's a joke. The CIA, the DIA, the FBI, you pick it, the NSA, every day is on the prowl looking for Russian interference or spying activity or what have you. For crying out loud, folks, the Russians have succeeded in infiltrating the American college campus. The Russians have succeeded, the Soviets, the communists have succeeded in infiltrating American pop culture. They've been doing it for decades. This is flat out insulting here to think that this Russian election investigation is something unique and special that has a finite beginning and a finite end, and that it's only something that's relative to Trump. All of this is just giant misdirection. It's just a giant lie. So all these stories about Comey, the special prosecutor, whistleblower instead of leaker, and all this. Let me read to you a Newt Gingrich tweet. Republicans need to focus on closing down independent counsel because it clearly isn't independent. Amen, and right on. And before I go to the next break, I want to leave you with a couple of questions. Where were the Republicans? Outside of Marco Rubio for a brief time, where were the Republicans yesterday? Where were the Republicans following up on Comey's admissions about Loretta Lynch? Where were the Republicans hammering home for the cameras, for the people, the idea that Trump had not been a target for 3 months and that everybody knew it? Where were the Republicans on TV last night excoriating this investigation and chastising the Democrats for perpetrating this fraud? Where were the Republicans? I wasn't watching, but somebody told me the only guests that Fox News had last night was an endless parade of Democrats. Where are the Republicans? And with that, an obscene profit timeout. And a quick return. Here is Chris in somewhere in South Carolina. Great to have you on the program. Hi.
Yeah, hey, Rush. Video Village watching, Basset Hound owning, Ziggleviti Stunk Dittos. I've been with you since Gulf War the movie, thanks to the two lovely and gracious ladies, Grace and Deanna, who first turned me on to you.
Wow, you must have remembered I had a Basset Hound.
Yes, Jason.
Exactly right. My
Yes,
mom, when we were growing up, she had a Dachshund, but the first dog I had was actually a Basset Hound named Jason. You're exactly right.
Yes. I was listening to your question to the Republicans right before the break, and I'm telling you, they need to get their feces consolidated. Otherwise, there's going to be serious repercussions.
I think, well, interesting way of putting it. I think the feces may be compacted.
Yes. But anyway, the reason why I called is assuming that this stupid Russian Golden Showers dossier is correct. What crime was committed?
Well, I have forgotten much of what's in the dossier, but if you're referring specifically to Trump hiring hookers to urinate on Obama's bed,
yes, sir.
It's not a crime. It clearly isn't a crime. It didn't happen, though. I know you're doing a hypothetical. What if it did happen? But
yes.
it didn't. The whole thing was made up. Who thinks this way? Who even knows?
Exactly.
Did you even know? Let me tell you, I don't know. It could well be you're in South Carolina, Chris, so you may have heard of this. Have you ever heard of hiring hookers to urinate on a bed?
No, sir.
Nor have I. I've heard of hookers, and I know why you buy them or rent them. But I wouldn't have the slightest, it would never occur to me to hire one or 3 or 4 and say, okay, ladies, aim for that spot there. It would never occur to me.
Exactly.
And yet it ends up in some dossier. Suppose it were the whole thing is just, it's untrue. And so, but your question is, what if it did happen? Where's the crime?
Yeah, exactly. What crime was committed?
In terms of international intrigue, no, I don't know. Is it a crime to hire prostitutes in Moscow? I don't know. I get your drift. Where is the crime? But they're going after Trump in all ways, not just that he's committed crimes, but primarily that he's a pig, a reprobate, a barbarian, a brute, a misogynist, all of these things, and none of it's sticking. Okay, going to save this next one for Monday. There's some people worried that video game women, the heroines in video games, being made to look like porn stars with big breasts, are damaging young boys and leaving them with unrealistic expectations of how real women look. And they're worried about them becoming mentally ill when they become dissatisfied with real women. Details Monday.